And it's odd that you have a country which is the second so-called blackest country, and yet, here's the thing, they have a white president. Makes no sense. Just shows you.
It's not book color in Brazil.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
All right. So this is going to be a very heavy teaching. It shouldn't be that long, but it's going to be definitely full with a lot of information. So, and some of the information you've had before, so you need to pay close attention. All right. Genesis chapter 1 and 1. Let's read. Genesis chapter 1 and 1. We're going to read that first. And once we've read that, we're going to go forward. Go ahead, sir.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Yahweh created the heaven and the earth.
Now, it says, in the beginning, Yahweh created the heaven and the earth. Now, we dealt with this the other night, just briefly. It says, in the beginning, God. God is the word Elohim. Elohim deals with the word power.
God.
So, Eloi, power. And then Yum deals with, this is the plural, or the suffix of that. It's the plural. There are many, many gods. Now, the gods that is speaking about, not many gods as in there's more God than the God. It means that they're God-like in their stature. All right? So from here, let's go to John 1 and 1. I'll come back to that in just a moment, but let's go to St. John chapter 1 and verse 1. All right, St. John chapter 1 and verse 1. Let's read that, if you please. Shalom.
St. John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word.
In the beginning was what?
In the beginning was the Word.
Read.
And the Word was with God.
And the Word was where?
With God.
Read.
And the Word was God.
Now, let's understand this. When it uses the term, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Let's begin to understand this. First of all, let's put it in sequence. There are several positions that are held by the men who followed Yahweh. There are several positions. John is one of the top apostles of Yahweh. He's one of the top apostles. Peter is the first. And you need to know this because it makes sense when you read the scriptures. If you don't know this, when you read the scriptures and you see their names come up, you'll wonder what is the purpose behind them. Peter is the first. John is the second. And James is the third. James was the brother of Yahweh. He's the third. Right? So, when we understand that now, we begin to see the succession line and why the scriptures make certain statements throughout. Why was Peter looked upon in a certain light, and then why was John looked upon in a certain light, and then why was James then looked upon? To understand this now, we have to look at the word beginning. Let's go to Revelation chapter 14, and in fact Revelation chapter 3 and 14 would be better. Put Revelation chapter 3 and verse 14. This will help you to understand why John says, in the beginning was the Word. Let's read.
Revelation chapter 3, verse 14. And unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans.
So it says, unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans. Now the angel that is speaking about here, it means the messenger. So every pastor is an angel of a church because he's the messenger of that church. But is he the only angel? Not necessarily. Because all those men or women who are waking up their brethren, they are messengers. They are taking on an angel-like status because they will not keep silent, but they're speaking this to their friends, families, and acquaintance. Read on.
These things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness.
The faithful and true witness. Now watch this now. Watch it. Read.
The beginning of the creation of God.
The beginning of the creation of God. So how could God have a beginning? Well, this is speaking about Yahushua. That's why when you hold that and go back to John 1:1 and read it again, watch what it says.
St. John chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, Yahweh. Read.
And the Word was God.
And the Word was Yahweh. So when we go back now and read Revelations chapter 4, or 3 I should say, and 14, the latter clause, watch what it says.
Revelation chapter 3 verse 14, the latter clause. In the beginning of the creation of God.
In the beginning, it says the beginning of the creation of God. Before I touch that and get into some details with it, go to Revelation chapter 19 and 30. Revelations chapter 19 and 30. Let's read.
Revelation chapter 19 verse 13. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood.
So it clothes in a vesture dipped in blood. Read.
And his name is called the Word.
And his name is what?
Is called the Word of God.
The Word of God. Hold that. Go back to John chapter 1 and 1.
John chapter 1 verse 1.
Read.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
Read.
And the Word was God.
See? So then when we go back to Revelations chapter 19 and 14, it tells us.
Revelation chapter 19 verse 13. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood.
Read.
And his name is called the Word of God.
His name is called the Word of Yahweh. Is that making sense to us so far? Yes. I mean, because I want you to understand that all this is tying into John 1 and 1.
That's right.
Letting you know when it's speaking about a beginning, it's speaking about Yahushua. Speaking about who he is. Because Yahushua was created. His father was not. Yes. That's why there's no mention in the scriptures about anything to do with the Father in that light. No mention at all. But when it comes to Yahushua, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus, he had a beginning, both on earth as well as in heaven. That making sense to us so far? All right, read verse 14 in Revelation chapter 19 and 14. We read 13, let's read 14.
Revelation chapter 19, verse 14. And the armies which were in heaven.
So it's now letting you know that there is an army in heaven. The question you must ask yourself is, what on earth is an army doing in heaven? Who's it going to fight against? Well, there's an army because there's a real war that's about to be fought. And that's going to be World War III. And so it says, read it again.
Revelation chapter 19, verse 14. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses.
Now the white horses, as we know, is what? Chariots. They're chariots. They're not literal horses. The term horse is used as an expression. Read.
Clothed in fine linen,
Fine linen is pursuant to the word, covered with the word, and the laws and the statutes and the commandments. Read.
White and clean.
White and clean. So from here, we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 8 and 22. Proverbs 8 and 22. Now we're going to come back to Proverbs again, but I want to hit it now whilst it's fresh in our minds, all right? 8 and 22. This now will solidify John 1 and 1 and Revelation chapter 19 and 13. Let's read.
Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old.
Before his works of old. So this is speaking about Yahushua. Now, for those who can receive it, this is Solomon talking about this. He's got a spiritual understanding of who he was. So, read it if you please.
Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way.
Read.
Before his works of old. Verse 23. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was.
See? So are you seeing the correlations, ladies and gentlemen? Because that's what I want you to get. I don't want to shoot through this and you don't see it. The correlation is that John 1 and 1 tells you in the beginning.
That's right.
Now he's breaking it down in bite-sized portions and letting you realize that I was set up from the everlasting, from the beginning, or even the earth was.
That's right.
Verse 24, let's read.
Verse 24. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world.
Now the reason why he says all this, because remember, he's the one who makes all of those things.
That's right.
The Father doesn't make that. The Father made a Son that the Son could go and carry out the deeds of the Father. So he says, before the hills, before the dust, before the waters, before the floods, before the trees, before the air, before all of those things I was. And therefore it was me who came and made all those things. Why? Because I knew the mind of my Father. And that's why when you read in the New Testament where it says, I and my Father are one, meaning not necessarily one and the same, but one in mind.
That's right.
I know what my Father wanted and I did the bids of my Father. That's why then later on it says, and God made these things. God made them because he made them through his Son. Because a real God doesn't do anything.
That's right.
Like a real king doesn't go make himself a cup of tea. He says, I want tea, and people are shuffling around, and before you know it, tea comes.
That's right.
So read on, watch this now.
Verse 27. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth.
So there's a compass upon the face of the depth. Read.
When he established the clouds above. When he strengthened the fountains of the deep.
Read.
When he gave to the sea his decree, that the waters should not pass his commandments.
So the waters even obey. What manner of man is this, that the wind and the rain and the waves obey him? Read.
When he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight.
Read.
Rejoicing always before him.
Wow.
That's right.
That's powerful. Yes. But then read on.
Verse 31. Rejoicing in the inhabitable parts of his Salaki, of his earth, and my delights were with the sons of men.
Read.
Now therefore, hearken unto me, O ye children, for blessed are they that keep my ways.
Keep my commandments. Read.
Hear instruction, and be wise, and refuse it not.
Read.
Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates,
Read.
waiting at the post of my door.
Read.
For whomso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord.
See that? Read 36.
But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.
Meaning they find themselves in the congregation of the dead. I mean, it's powerful. I mean, it's just link. I mean, if you're not getting this, then I don't know what we're going to do about you, but because this is pretty clear here.
That's right.
So now, let's go to Genesis chapter 1 and 1. We dealt with John. Now let's deal with Genesis. Now we understand that. We're dealing with the beginning, in the beginning. That's what we're focusing on. So let's read now. Watch this. Read.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
So now we know that this is Yahweh with the angels who's creating everything. And if you have the strength to take this next portion as well, the elect was with him too. Now that's a bit hard pill to swallow for some of us. So you're saying that I was there? Well, we don't know that you're the elect yet because you haven't finished.
That's right.
None of us know whether we're the electors yet because we haven't finished this race. We're still running. The Bible says, he that endures to the end, same shall be saved. You've got to get to the end. You've got to die first and have kept yourself faithful all the way. Because if you haven't, then we know you weren't as the elect as soon as we thought you were. But here, it said that it was, we know that the word Eloi or Elohim means power, and Yom means plural, and so we know there are others with him. Created the heaven as we know it, and the earth as we know it. And now remember, there's a place where the Father is that he already existed. And he existed there a long time by himself before he chose to make a son. That blows my mind because I just don't know how you could exist by yourself. But as a God, you are you're self-willed, you're self-emitting, you are self-generating, you don't need anyone. We were taught back in Bible school many years ago that he is omnipresent or omnipresent. He is omniscient, knowing all things. Omnipresent means he's everywhere and yet not anywhere. He's omniscient, meaning he knows everything before and after and during. And who can tell what the third one is? If he's omnipresent, he's everywhere, and he's omniscient, what's the last one? What?
Past, present, future.
Can't hear you.
Past, present, future.
No. Omnipotent. Is that what you said? Omnipotent. Right. Where we get the word potency from. So it's omnipotent. All powerful. So it's all present, all knowing, and all powerful. Omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. Omniscient is where we get the word science, meaning knowledge, all knowledge. Omnipresent, everywhere, and omnipotent, all powerful. That's why when a man cannot produce children, he is called impotent. Right? Because he has no power. When a man produces children, he has power. All right? You with me so far? All right. So when we read this now, let's go to verse 2. Read for me, please, verse 2.
Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2. And the earth was without form.
And the earth was what?
Was without form.
Was without form, read.
And void.
And void.
And darkness was upon the face of the deep.
And darkness was what?
Was upon the face of the deep.
Was upon the face of the deep, read.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
Now, who can explain that real quick? Just in a few verses there. Explain that. And the earth was without form and void. Now, who got it? Anyone?
Meaning like God, like Yahweh present, was leading the house now?
Yes, well, yes, he's always leading him, but we have a son who is obedient to his father, so the son will always be in the will of the father. Go ahead.
So was the earth brought into form, and there was darkness over us because, darkness over the earth because it hadn't been inhabited by the Most High fully, to some form?
No, not really.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I was thinking things like there was nothing there, you took nothing and made something.
Mm-hmm.
Like the different the waters and the planet, not the planets, the cities and states and all kinds of separated different things. The land from the water.
Okay, you said an awful lot there. You said a lot, but I'm not sure what you were trying to signify. But all right, but I hear you. Let's take that on board. I won't say. Go ahead. Want to have another crack? Go ahead.
I'm trying to say like the spirit of Yahweh moved within Yahweh, and then he moved on the face of the waters and created.
Again, all right.
Waters is
You're attempting, but all right.
waters is the word.
Huh?
Waters would mean the word. Moved upon the waters, moved upon the face of the waters. So he put his spirit.
Jeremiah 4:24 and 23, just real quick. Go ahead and read.
4:23.
4:23.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, verse 23. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light.
See that? All right. So, read it one more time for me, please.
Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 23. And I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form, and void, and the heavens, and they had no light.
No light there. All right. Isaiah 40, 13.
Isaiah chapter 40, verse 13.
No, yes, that's right, go ahead.
Who have directed the Spirit of the Lord, or being his counselor, have taught him.
Go on.
Verse 14. With whom took he counsel, and who instructed him? And who taught him in the path of judgment, and taught him knowledge, and showed to him the way of understanding?
So, we see then that everything there that we have just learned from Jeremiah 4:23, from Isaiah 13 through 40, it lets us know that the earth, it said, and the earth was without form and void. I think this is the whole teaching that we're going to have to focus on. Let me, because of time, let me leave that one for down the road. All right? Yes, but I know it's, I want to get into that beat. Oh, I want to know now.
So in that case then, in that case, when the Spirit God moved upon the face of the water, that's mean we start coming up from the water.
Now, okay. Now, all right. Move aside for a minute. All right, you had your hand up.
Okay.
No, I need to hear what you're going to say. What are you going to say, brother?
I was just basically going to say, it seemed like nothing was created or nothing existed at the
Right.
time. And that's when the house was created to be
Now, what we've got to remember is that when he made everything, he's not within any time frame. This is not like this is day one. Because you'll notice that day one begins when you hit verse 3. Huh? Yeah, the brain's really kind of hitting real hard here. Can you hear me okay? Yes? All right. So let me say this. Verse 1 and 2 is outside of the timeline. This is not the timeline where it's saying, it's not saying that this is the first day. That's not what it's saying, because in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, etc., etc. But it's not until we get to the first day dealing with light that we begin to speak about a day. We don't speak about a day until we get to verse 3, because now we're speaking with light. When we're speaking with light, now we have to include a day, because a day now, light distinguishes day. And then night comes, because after one comes another. So now we're in time. Are you with me? Because outside of light and day, there is no time, right?
That's right.
But the moment you introduce light, and then light, and then the night, and then you now have a timeline to work with. Before that, there was no. So we don't know how long the earth was at this period. We don't know how old it was. We don't know what Yahweh was doing. But one thing we do know, and you touched it, read it again, sir.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And the earth was without form.
It was without form, meaning nothing was, there was no shape. When there's no form, there's no shape. Go on.
And darkness was there.
No, the earth was without form and void. Meaning that it was empty. But then it says,
and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
Now darkness is important. Because normally the scholars are reading darkness like it's negative. No, because think about it just for a moment. I mean, I would pull script, but this is not where I want to go, you see. But, People here are trying to kind of force my hand, because I touch it a little bit, and then what you said kind of rocked the boat. Here we are. Are you with me now? What happens to a photograph when you're developing? What is the atmosphere you need for that? Darkness. Even when it comes to an egg, what's inside the egg? What is inside the egg? What atmosphere is inside the egg? Darkness. So darkness is a very important part of development. And so it said, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now, with what you just said, this is what gave me the juice to want to go forward. Just a little bit. Read, sir.
And the Spirit.
And the Spirit, read.
Of God moved upon the face of the water.
So all of the spirits came and moved among the face of the waters. Why the waters? Because there was a transference from the Father to the waters. Because it's from the waters that we see in verse 20 that something happens when there has been an infusion, or when something is put in, because the angels moved on the face of the water. Because when it says, and God moved on the face of the waters, these were the angels of the Most High. These were the Alahayim. They were moving, and you can imagine they were going back on the block, all over the earth, and spirits were being placed. And by the way, every spirit that was needed to come forth was coming forth at that time. And then in verse 20 it says, watch, read.
Genesis chapter 1 verse 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life.
And the moving creatures that have life is every moving creature. We included. We included.
So it's like he was dropping his seed into the waters.
Figuratively, yes. See? You with me now, Ernest? It's heavy. I mean, it's heavy. I don't really want to go into it, but still. But finish it, sir.
And fowl that may fly upon the earth.
All those things that flew above the earth, read.
In the open firmament of heaven.
So it lets you know all the things that came out of the waters. But it makes it very clear, moving creatures that have life. Do we move and have life? Yes. And so a whole nation of people, or existence of people, came out of the waters. Now, let's get back on track. And we'll get back to this down in the future. Can I now? Thank you very much. 26.
Verse 26.
Thank you.
Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image.
So here we're back to Elohim again.
That's right.
Let us make man in our image that look like us. They have appendages called arms and legs. So the angels of the Most High God, they had those things first. And read.
After our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea.
See, I told them this many years ago. You know, when you're dealing with image and likeness, all those things, I mean, you've got to pull the precepts to really get a clear understanding, but it's powerful. And so let them have dominion. Dominion is important here. There's a scripture just jumping into my head. I don't know if it's right. Now go to Ephesians chapter 1 and 9 for me, please. I may be off, but just go there real quick. Yeah.
Have made known unto us the mystery of his will.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's read. Let's read it aloud. Let me see if this is where I want to go.
Ephesians chapter 1 verse 9. Having made known unto us the mystery of his will.
So the mystery of his will. There's a mystery behind his will, about his plans, what he's doing. Go ahead.
According to his good pleasure.
According to his good pleasure. Yes, that is what I wanted. Yes, go on.
which he have purposed in himself.
Which he purposed in himself. Go on.
Verse 10. That in the dispensation of the fullness of time.
So there is an allotted period that has to be fulfilled. Go on.
He might gather together in one all things in the Hamashiach.
Go on.
Both which are in heaven and which are on earth, even in him.
All right. What verse did you finish?
That was 10.
10. Hit 11 for me, please.
Verse 11. In whom also we have obtained an inheritance.
All right. Go ahead.
Being predestinated.
Being predestinated, meaning you were made for a purpose to go in a certain destiny or journey. Being what? Read that again. Read 11 again.
In whom also we have obtained an inheritance.
We obtain this. Go on.
Being predestinated according to the purpose of him who worketh all things after the counsel of his own will.
After the counsel of his own will.
That's right.
So we have been purposed. And therefore, that's why it said, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over, because we are meant to have governmentship. We've been given the ability to have a governmentship over the fishes of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth. Notice, not world, because world means something else.
That's right.
He says earth, meaning the complete scope of the earth. And over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the face of the earth.
That's right.
See that? Hebrews chapter 1 and 1. Hebrews chapter 1 and 1. I feel like I want to touch images now. Hebrews chapter 1 and 1.
Yes, sir. The book of Hebrews, chapter 1 and verse 1.
Read.
God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in times past.
Spake in times past, read.
Unto the fathers by the prophets.
Unto our ancestors by the prophets.
That's right.
All right. Drop that. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and 17. Yeah, go ahead.
2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 17. Therefore, if any man be in the Hamashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new.
So we are a creature, a new creature. So when we go back to verse 20, and it says, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly moving creatures. We are a part of that. So if anyone's going to be struggling with that, we are a new creature. We're one of these creatures.
That's right.
They said moving creatures that have life. We are that. Does it make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
All right. So because many times people, we don't understand. I said, let us make man. Now remember, every king doesn't do the work. The king doesn't do the work. You see? That's why if you remember when Saul got upset, when they came back and they were chanting that song, they said, Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000. Now remember, Saul didn't slay 1,000 people. As a king, he didn't do that, but his men did. And David didn't slay 10,000. David didn't do that, but his troops did, because he was under the leadership of Saul at the time. So you see that men who are in power don't necessarily do the thing, but they get credit for the thing. Right? And that's why when it said, and let us make man in our image, we're getting an understanding of what the scriptures is trying to say. All right, let's go to Ephesians chapter 3. I know we were there a moment ago. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 3 and 9. 3 and 9, please. Go ahead.
Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 9. and to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the world hath been hid in God, who created all things by Yahushua the
You
Mashiach.
see, so now it's confirming that Yahushua made all things. See, it's confirming it. It said, and to make, remember we read that? We read it in Hebrews chapter 1 and 1. And here again, it said, to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the world has been hid in Yahweh, who created all things by Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai Mashiach. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, Colossians chapter 1 and 13. Let's go back there. Colossians chapter 1 and 13. Let's go, please.
The book of Colossians, chapter 1 and verse 13. Who have delivered us from the power of darkness.
All right, see, the power of darkness. Go ahead.
And have translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son,
Read.
in whom we have redemption through his blood.
Through him we are redeemed, bought back. The price that was paid was blood. Read.
Even for the forgiveness of sins.
And that was to bring about the forgiveness of our transgressions, because we sinned, because we broke his laws, statutes, and commandments. Read.
Who is the image?
There is the word image that we were reading back in Genesis chapter 1 and 26. Who is the image
of the invisible God.
Of the invisible God. So our image was taken from an invisible God to make a physical image that you now see. So when you see us, you're seeing something that looks like the Father.
That's right.
You look, you know, when a father has a child is born, but guess what the father wants to do? He wants to take that baby and he's looking all over the baby. Yes, that's me.
That's right.
Yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's my smile. He's got my smile. You see, because fathers are confirming the child, the image, looking like their image. Am I right?
Yes.
And then, watch what it goes on to say. Read for me, please.
The firstborn of every creature.
So the firstborn of every creature. So who is the firstborn of every creature? Yahushua. He's the firstborn.
That's right.
And we are made to be like him. Read on. Watch it now. Follow this carefully.
Verse 16. For by him were all things created.
So he made everything, tying in with Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 22. Right? Go on.
That are in heaven and that are in earth.
So everything that you see in the heavens that you're able to see, because you haven't seen everything in heaven yet, you haven't had that ability, but you've seen most things on the earth. Even if you've never seen a giraffe, a zebra, or a wildebeest, you've seen them on television, right? So you have an idea. Now the time will come in the future that you will see them firsthand.
That's right.
Now I'm looking forward to that future. I'm looking forward to the future where I can walk up to a giraffe and I can say, "Oh, you sweet looking fella." And I can, and I can feed him and have some, and he can bring his long neck down and eat out of my hand. I mean, I should have that right if my father made him.
Right.
I should have the right as a child to enjoy him. Have you enjoyed anything like that?
No.
I've never done it. And even when I've been to the zoo and I've seen a zebra, and I love zebras, because I can't get over how, just like a fingerprint is different, when you see a zebra, not one of them are the same. All their
That's right.
patterns are different.
That's right.
I have a big picture on the wall at home of a zebra, because to me it's like, when I say, It's like it takes, that the black and white color takes me in. So that's your future. You can experience those things. I mean, is there nothing that you think about in your future that you would not want to experience that your Father has made? No, nothing. Oh, that's so sad.
I'd like to be able to go up to tigers and lions.
Tigers and lions. Okay, now we're on the same track. Because in times past, you put your hand on one of those things, your hand is gone. But in our future, they'll see us and they'll respect us. Huh? All right. Let them fantasy aside. Let's keep going forward. Read for me.
Visible and invisible.
So the visible and invisible, read.
Whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him.
Now that's speaking about rulers and authorities.
That's right.
When it talks about principalities and powers. Read on.
And he is before all things.
He is what?
He is before all things.
Again, pursuant to Proverbs chapter 8 and 22. Read.
And by him all things consist.
Read.
And he is the head of the body.
He is the head of the body. Read.
The church.
The church.
Who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence.
Right. Now the word preeminence means what? Huh? Yes. Meaning he has first control over everything. First position over everything. Nothing comes before him. He is the one. Are you seeing that? All right. So now, if you please, let's go to Psalms 33 and verse 6. Psalms 33 and verse 6. Let us read 33 and verse 6.
The book of Psalms, chapter 33 and verse 6. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made.
See, by the words of the Lord was the heavens made. And notice, what is the spelling there?
All uppercase.
All uppercase. So that's the Father now. So by the words of Yahweh were the heavens made. You see, they've taken out his name and put this in. And now we know what his name is. We should, whenever possible, read it with the Father's name correction. Right? Go on.
And all the host of them by the breath of his mouth.
By the breath of what?
Of his mouth.
Of his mouth. Let's go to 2 Ezra 6 and 1. 2 Ezra 6 and 1. Go for a minute.
In the Apocrypha, 2 Esdras, chapter 6 and verse 1. And he said unto me, in the beginning.
In what?
In the beginning.
Go ahead.
When the earth was made.
Remember, we're dealing with in the beginning now. That's our theme. Go on.
Before the borders of the world stood, or ever the winds blew.
Watch this now. Read.
Before it thundered and lightened, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid. Before the fair flowers were seen, or ever the movable powers were established.
Read.
Before the innumerable multitude of angels were gathered together.
Read.
Or ever the heights of the air were lifted up. Before the measures of the firmament were named. Or ever the chimneys of Zion were hot. And ere the present years were set out. And or ever the inventions of them that now sin were termed, before they were sealed.
You're going to have to read that again, because that's a powerful verse there, and it's loaded.
Yes, sir.
Let's read it again.
Verse 5. And ere the present years were sought out, and or ever the inventions of them that now sin were termed.
See, those who had inventions and now sin, read,
were termed, before they were sealed, that have gathered faith for a treasure.
Faith for a treasure. All right. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9 and verse 1.
In the Apocrypha, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter
9 and 1.
chapter 9 and verse 1. O Yahweh of my fathers, and Lord of mercy, who has made all things with thy word.
With thy word. Read the next verse.
And ordained man through thy wisdom, that he should have dominion over the creatures which thou hast made.
Which ties back in with Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 on down. Let's read just a couple more verses. Yeah.
Verse 3. And order the world according to equity and righteousness, and execute judgment with an upright heart. Give me wisdom that sitteth by thy throne, and reject me not from among thy children.
From among thy children. That's beautiful. All right. That's good. All right. So from here, let's go to John 1. Let's go back there now. Let's go back to John 1. And let's break this up some more. All right. John chapter 1 and 1. Let's read.
St. John chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Read.
The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made.
So it said all things were made by him. All things, didn't say some. And without him was not anything made that was made. That links in, that's pursuant to Genesis chapter 1 and 1. That's your linking right there. All right. And also Jeremiah chapter 17 and 24. Jeremiah 17 and 24. Let's take a nice look at that. Yes, beautiful. Go ahead.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 24. And it came to pass, if ye diligently hearken unto me, saith the Lord, to bring in no burden through the gates. Is this the correct verse?
Yes, sir.
Slide. Of this city on the Sabbath day, but hallow the Sabbath day, to do no work therein.
All right, go on.
Then shall there enter into the gates of this city kings and princes, sitting upon the...
Okay. Hold up. All right, I've jumped ahead of myself. Just for a moment. Salaki, hold off. Use the same verse, but John 17. And that's better. All right, my error.
The book of St. John, chapter 17, verse 24. Father, I will that they also, whom thou hast given me, be with me where I am.
That's it. Now, here is what we want to hit. Read it again from the top, sir, and follow this very carefully, ladies and gentlemen.
John chapter 17, verse 24. Father, I will that they also, whom thou hast given me, be with me where I am.
All right, so he makes a request to his Father. He said, I will that they also, whom thou hast given me, be with me where I am. Read.
That they may behold my glory.
That they may see the power that you have bestowed to me. Continue.
which thou hast given me. For thou lovest me before the foundation of the world.
You loved me before the foundation of the world. Before anything existed, you loved me. Right? Okay. Hold in that for a moment. Let's go to John chapter 6. Same John 6 and 63. John chapter 6 and 63.
St. John chapter 6, verse 63. It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing.
So when it says it is the spirit that quickeneth, what does that mean, please?
Make alive.
Make alive. All right. So it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. Read.
The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life.
So the words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So words are spirit. Right?
Right.
And they are life, right? That's why you can speak. The scripture says, death and life is in the power of the tongue, and they that eat the fruit of it, right? So if you speak life, that's why you have to be careful what you say. And some of us are destroying ourselves by saying the wrong things. When things are going wrong in our life, we start to say all the negative things because we feel like, well, that's what's happening to me. No. Your circumstances may be this, but you have the power to change your circumstance by what you say. Because you are children of Yahweh. Read it one more time for me, please.
St. John chapter 6, verse 63. It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth.
So the spirit quickens. So you're alive. And if you're alive, you still have the ability to change things.
That's right.
Through the grace of your Father which is in heaven. Read.
The flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life.
They are spirit and they are life. All right. Because of time, I'll go somewhere else. I'll go to Romans, but let's go to John 8 and 12 for a quick minute, please. John 8 and 12.
The book of John, chapter 8, verse 12.
Now pay attention because it's this very important where we're going now, and you'll miss it if you lose track. Go on.
John chapter 8, verse 12. Then spake Yahushua again unto them, saying,
Watch it. Go on.
I am the light.
I am what?
I am the light
Read.
of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life.
So it says, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in ignorance, but shall have the knowledge of life. All right? With that, let's go to chapter 12, and we're going to read verse 25.
St. John, chapter 12, verse 25. He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world,
In what world?
in this world,
Read.
shall keep it unto life eternal.
So you're not to put yourself in a thing, in a mode that you just love being here. Oh, I love my life. I love everything about it. I love what I have. You do that, you are damning yourself. Read it again from the top, if you please.
Yes, sir. St. John, chapter 12, verse 25. He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal.
Right, eternal. Let's go back to 1 John. Let's go back there. Let's follow the progression. Let's read verse 4.
St. John chapter 1, verse 4. In him was life.
In him was life. So we're focusing on life. Read.
And the life was the light of men.
And the life was the light of men. Hold that quickly. Let's go to 1 John 5 and 11. 1 John 5 and 11.
The book of 1 John, chapter 5, verse 11.
All right.
And this is the record, that Yahweh had given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son.
Is in his Son. Continue.
He that hath the Son have life.
If you have the Son, you have life. Isn't that something? Read it one more time, if you please.
1 John chapter 5, verse 12. He that hath the Son have life, and he that hath not the Son of the Most High have not life.
Has not life. All right, let's go back to John 1 and 5.
Yes, sir. The book of St. John, chapter 1, verse 5. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not.
All right. Now, with that in mind, we want to go to Psalms chapter 18, verse 28. Psalms chapter 18 and 28. I'm going to ask some questions in a moment. Let's read.
The book of Psalms, chapter 18, verse 28. For thou wilt light my candle, the Lord my God.
All right, so before you continue with that, let me go back and read St. John 1, 4 and 5. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not. Now we're reading Psalms 18 and 28. Watch what it says.
Psalms 18, verse 28. For thou wilt light my candle.
It also do what?
For thou wilt light my candle.
Read.
The Most High, my Yah, will enlighten my darkness.
Will do what?
Will enlighten my darkness.
Will enlighten my darkness. So, and explain that, please. It's very straightforward, so
Yes, it is.
let's not make any.
Take us out of ignorance, because darkness is ignorance.
Right. Darkness is ignorance, it's a lack of light, it's sin, it's all of those, all of the above. But it said, for thou wilt light my candle. The candle meaning this word. That's why the scripture says, thy word is what? Is that what? A lamp unto my feet and a
Light
to my path.
and a light unto my pathway. All right, so you see the correlation there. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Yes? Good. Job chapter 29. Job 29. And we're going to begin at verse 1. Job 29, verse 1. Go ahead.
The book of Job, chapter 29, verse 1. Moreover, Job continued his parable and said, Oh, that I were as in months past, as in the days of God, preserved me, when his candle shined upon my hand,
Read.
and when by his light I walked through darkness.
I walked through what?
I walked through
I
darkness.
walked through darkness. When the candle, when his word, thy word is a lamp to my feet and a light
To my path.
unto my pathway. So when we read verse 3 again in Proverbs 29, read what it says.
Job chapter 29, verse 3. When his candle shines upon my head, and when by his light I walk through darkness.
See? So the word will guide you. You won't get lost. It's very difficult to make a wrong move or to stumble, maybe it's the word that I'm looking for, when you have the light. And the word, this word, stops you from stumbling.
That's right.
Let's go back to Psalms. Maybe I should have went there before, but it doesn't matter. Psalms 119, 105. (119, 105).
The book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 105.
Let's read it.
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet.
So, and the word in John chapter 1 and verse 1 is whom? Yahushua.
Amen.
So it's saying to us here, read,
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet.
so Yahushua will be a lamp to your feet. Read,
And a light unto my path.
and he will lighten your path.
Amen.
You see how it's all tied together nicely there?
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to Proverbs 6 and 26, 6 and 23. Now let's see what the light also refers to. Let's read.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 6, verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp.
So the commandments is also a lamp.
And the law is light.
And the law also is light.
That's right. And reproofs of instruction are the way of life.
So that's wonderful what it's telling us there, that so long as we stay following the commandment, it is a lamp to us. It's a lamp to us, right? I need to make a quick note. Just bear with me just for a quick moment. All right, good. From there, let's go to 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians. Second Corinthians chapter 4 and 3. That's my thought. Yeah, go ahead.
The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 4 and verse 3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost.
Read that again.
But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost.
Now, the reason why this is important, because again, the question is, why is it then that some of our people don't get this truth? What we're about to embark on is to prove to you that they don't get the truth, because the truth is that Yahweh does not want them. Now, that's a hard pill to bite down on, because when you hear that, you think about family, relatives, best friends, etc. Those that are close to you. But let's see where it takes us. Let's read it again from the top and then go forward.
2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. And
Right. Go on, sir.
in whom the God of this world,
The God of what?
the God of this
The
world
God of this world.
hath blinded the minds of them which believe not,
Which do what?
which believe not,
Which believe not.
lest the light of the glorious gospel of the Hamashiach,
Glorious gospel of the Mashiach. Go on.
who is the image of the Most High God.
Now, when it uses this word now, the confusion is that everybody thinks this is the devil. Right? But I want you to follow this. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. Lost meaning that they are, all right, if I go hit that. But then it says, in whom the God of this world, the God of this world is Esau. Esau is the God of this world, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not. And that's why has he done that? Because remember, Esau has taught our people the Bible, our book, and thrown us off that what we should have been studying, like here and now, we've been studying his way. Therefore, our minds have been completely shifted from the truth.
That's right.
And we've been lost down, we've been going down this tunnel for the longest time, not understanding a whole lot. But when the time comes to get happy in church, we get happy, but we don't understand the word. Because most of our friends and families don't understand the word. And some have some snippets, they do have some snippets, but they don't have it all. Because, read verse 4 again, please.
In whom the God of this world have blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of the Mashiach, who is the image of the Most High, should shine unto them.
Jump to 6.
Verse 6. For God, who commanded the light.
Commanded what?
Commanded the light.
Read.
To shine out of darkness, have shined in our hearts.
In what?
In our hearts.
In our hearts. Watch it now. To what?
To give the light of the knowledge of the glory of the Most High in the face of Yahushua the Mashiach.
So it's telling us that the light of the knowledge of the glory, knowledge of the power of God. So we see then that the light is knowledge. It makes it very, very clear here. I mean, it's there in black and white for those who might be struggling with the idea of light being knowledge. Good?
119.
Right there, they have a small, a capital G.
I'm sorry?
It has a capital G and a small O. And he's
Come on,
in your
spell.
And with what? The word God, we're talking?
Mhm.
Yes.
The knowledge of the glory of God.
Yes.
Faith of Jesus.
Yes.
College shop.
Yes. Because you notice back up top of verse 4 when it said, in whom the God of this world, notice small g.
Yes.
That's just, we don't have any interruptions. All right. So close that door up there, please. Close that door up there as well. So that's how we are aware of what's going on here, because it lets us know that the small g is speaking about Esau. All right? And then at the bottom, when we read on, it says, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God. Christ who is the image of God, because he's the image of the Father, because he looks like the Father. Now remember, nobody never knew what the Father looks like. They didn't know what God looks like. But when he made his Son, he made him to look like himself. And so then the Son then made the offsprings to look like him who looks like the Father, because he's the firstborn of all. And therefore, when we look at you, we should be seeing the image of God. And that's why it says here, it says who is the image of God, should shine unto them. Verse 6.
Verse 6. For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, have shined in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Yahweh Shai the Mashiach.
Good. In fact, let's go to Ezekiel right quick. Ezekiel 28. Ezekiel 28. And let's read verse 11.
Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation.
Take up what?
Take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, the Most High God, Thou sealest up the sun, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty.
Now, go on.
Verse 13. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Very precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, the gold, slaki, and gold, the workmanship of thy tabrets, and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou was created.
All right, so let's see how all this kind of comes together. So when we read verse 11, it says, Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation unto the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God, Thou sealest up the sun, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Now, when it's speaking about perfect in beauty there, again, we've done this before, but I don't want to get too much into detail with that. But let's go to Proverbs chapter 16 and 4 to cover that. It's Genesis 3, but I don't remember where. Genesis 3 and 1. But let's go to Proverbs first.
16 and 1.
16 and 4.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 4. The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil.
So what we're here to understand is that he made the wicked also. Esau is the wicked. Esau is going to be used as a sword to correct us. When we go off, the Most High God used them as a whip, and they correct us. How do they correct us? Go ahead.
By having us, I guess, work for them and
Come on, you've got to be more affirmative than
enslaving
that.
us.
Say again?
Enslaving us, I guess.
Yes, they've enslaved us, but currently, how are they whipping us right now?
You're killing us.
They're killing us. They're legally too, by the way. Legal shooting. And guess what? They turn around and say to an unarmed black man that they were in fear of their life and they're the ones with the gun. How are you in fear of your life? You have the gun. We have nothing.
The training.
Say again?
The training. They have the training.
And they have the training. But yet they're in fear of their life. So this is them being used as a sword against us. That's why the scripture says that the Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked. For what?
For the day of evil.
For the day of evil. Hold that. Go to Surah chapter 39 and 28, real quick.
Is it 29?
39 and 28.
That's what I heard. In the Apocrypha, Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 39, verse 28. There be spirits that are created for vengeance.
See? So he makes some spirits for vengeance. And he will use those same spirits against us every now and then. But when the time comes, he will use those spirits against the enemies who thrashed us and destroyed us in the first place.
That's right.
You with me so far? All right. Go on. Did you understand?
No, sir.
Go ahead.
Which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them.
So the only way that his wrath is going to be appeased is that he has to pour out the destruction upon us.
That's right.
That's how he does it. You with me so far? All right, back to Ezekiel 28, please. Now, I've touched this part before, so I'm not going to, I've taught on it before, so I'm not going to go into details, but just suffice to rekindle our memories. So, Ezekiel 28, we're going to read verse 13.
Yes, sir. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Very precious stone was thy covering.
Now remember the word Eden, because it's given us a similarity here. Go ahead.
The sardis, topaz, and the diamond.
All right, let me stop you there for a moment. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God, every precious stone was thy covering. Covering. You should underline that word. Then it goes on to say sardis, topaz, and the diamond, and the beryl, and so on. Continue, please.
The beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, the gold, and gold, the workmanship of thy tabrets, and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created.
Now, how many stones are those?
12.
No. How many stones are those? Huh? 10, right. Okay. So, we see then that there is a shortage then, right? Because in Israel there are 12.
Okay.
So if there's only 10 here, that means there's a shortage. And if there's a shortage, there's a reason behind that. Let's get the book of John chapter 12 ready. But whilst we're doing that, that shows imperfection. And remember, it said that is the key word there was precious stones was thy covering. Now remember, what did Adam and Eve do when they found themselves, according to the scriptures, naked? They covered themselves. But what if you cover yourself, and they covered themselves with, what did they cover themselves with? Fig leaves. If you cover yourself with a fig leaves are relatively large. What part does a fig leaf only cover then? Your lower extremities, just like that area, right? Because that would be the part that you would cover, so to speak. Remember, all this is figurative. This is not literal.
Right.
Because what you read in Genesis, many have taken it literal. Now remember, Esau has taught us that to be literal. That wasn't what it's doing. What it's showing is that they took an outside thing to cover up their sin. And they took it from a tree. Trees being people. So I took this knowledge and I covered up my lower extremities. But yet I left the rest of me exposed. And the only way that I can be covered up completely is that I need to have all 12 stones. And that's why Israel has 12 stones, which means they are completely covered, because 12 also represents foundation. And if we're covered properly, then we are not going to lose our balance. We will be stable. That's why when we study this, there's more to it than what meets the eye. Come?
Come.
All right. Let's read then John 12 and 28, please.
The book of John, chapter 12, verse 28. Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven, saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again.
Read on again. In fact, read it again, because that was a bit of
Yes,
a
sir.
dog's dinner.
John chapter 12, verse 28. Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven, saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. The people, therefore, that stood by and heard it, said that it thundered. Others said, an angel spake to him.
Read.
Yahushua answered and said, This voice came not because of me, but for your sakes.
Read.
Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out.
And who is prince of this world? Esau, who operates under the spiritual power of Satan. Remember, Satan's been given, he's been given authority to go and empower Esau. And that's what Esau has gone and done. You follow? But let's read on. Read that verse.
Verse 32. And if I be lifted up from the earth.
Read verse 31 and 32 again.
Verse 31. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me.
Now, the drawing of all men is only Israel.
That's right.
And he's speaking about his crucifixion here. Jump down to verse 35, please.
Verse 35.
Let's get back to the lights.
Then Yahushua said unto them, Yet a little while is the light with you.
You've only got this knowledge with you just for a short while. Read.
Walk while ye have the light.
So whilst this knowledge, this word, this light is with you, walk upright. Read.
Lest darkness come upon you.
Lest the ignorance which is sin, which comes from the attack of the prince of this world. Read.
For he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. While ye have light, believe in the light, that ye may be the children of light.
Read.
These things spake Yahushua, and departed, and did hide himself from them.
All right, let's go back to John 1. Let's go to 1 John chapter 3 and 8, please. Only got a few more, then we're done. 1 John chapter 3 and 8.
The book of 1 John, chapter 3, verse 8. He that committeth sin is of the devil.
So it tells us clearly here, if you allow sin to reign in your life, you are of the devil. Read.
For the devil sinneth from the beginning.
So from the get-go, he was what?
Salaki. For the devil sinneth from the beginning.
Now let's understand that, first of all. The devil doesn't sin. Oh, that's a big statement there. And think about it for a minute.
Isaiah 45.
Oh, go pull that out there. And tell me why I said that.
Because,
Because
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. You go.
I thought I was a teacher in class.
You go ahead one day.
All right? Go ahead first. You, sir.
Okay, because he has given up, the devil can sin because he's giving permission to give out this order to Esau.
Correct. Correct. He's carrying out what he is told to do. So he's not in sin, he's doing what he was instructed to do. You see? Sin is the breaking of the law, right? It's a transgression. But if he's carrying out what he was told to do, he's being obedient, correct? And what scripture you had, Doctor?
Isaiah 45 and 7.
Read it.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things.
So he does it. These things are done because it's part of his plan. Are you with me so far?
That's right.
So let's go back to where we were in John. What do we read? John 3 and 8?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Why we finished it?
But let's go.
1 John chapter 3, verse 8. He that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this
Meaning he caused men to sin.
That's right.
From the beginning. That's what that means. You get this, because otherwise you'll flounder down the road. He causes man to sin. Go on.
Salaki. For this purpose the Son of the Most High was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil.
Read.
Whosoever is born of the Most High doth not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of the Most High.
So you see, he's telling you you can't sin. If you keep his laws, statutes, and commandments, you can't sin.
That's right.
When you go outside of that, then you sin. Are you following this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's read a little piece more. Go on.
Verse 10. In this the children of the Most High are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doth not righteousness is not of the Most High.
See, so it's righteousness we're meant to do. And if we do righteously, then we're not in sin. Continue.
Neither he that loveth not his brother.
All right. From here, let's go to John 14 and 29. So John 14 and 29. Read.
St. John chapter 14, verse 29. And now I have told you before it come to pass, that when it is come to pass, ye might believe. Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me.
So when it's speaking about that now, it's speaking nothing in me, meaning Edom is the prince. Edom. And remember, we're speaking about Rome at this time. All right? And hath nothing in me, in other words, no belief. So Edom does not believe.
They won't give me that.
Even if they say they believe, they don't believe.
That's right.
Why? Because they don't keep
The law.
right. All right, from here, let's go to Luke 22 and 3. Let's read.
The book of Luke, chapter 22, verse 3. Then entered Satan unto Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12.
Now remember, Satan entered. Now Satan can only gain access if what?
The Most High gives him permission.
Right. So he was the instrument used to do this. But remember, he was already flawed. So he was flawed before as a follower, as a man. And that gave Satan access to him. If you're walking in the light as he is in the light, then you have what? Fellowship. One with another. But now he can't have this fellowship because he was flawed. And so it says, then Satan entered Satan into Judas, surname Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. Are you seeing that? So let's read on a little bit more.
Verse 4. And he went his way and communed with the chief priests.
Now remember why this is so important. Because when he's communing with the chief priests, some of those chief priests, by the way, were Edomites.
That's right.
Now that just went over some of your heads. That's why some of you get it, some of you don't. But some of them were Edomites. Because remember, there was a mixture going on there. Why do you think, just to give you an idea, why do you think when no, you tell me, making this too easy. Why do you think when he says, he makes a statement to them, and they turn and tell them, we, such and such, not us. Huh?
That's when he said, we're the children of Abraham. He told him, you believe your father the devil.
Yes, he said you're, but they say that they're the father of Abraham, and they blah blah blah. And they turn around and say, we have never been blah blah blah.
Never been slaves.
Yeah.
That's what they say, which lets you know that they couldn't be us. They had to be like humans, because they've been in Israel. I mean, they've been in Egypt as slaves, so it could be the same people.
Right. So let's move along from that because of time. Let's go to John 16 and 10 for a quick minute. John 16 and 16 and 10. Let's go.
The book of John, chapter 16 and verse 10. Of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and ye see me no more.
Read on.
Of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth, for he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come.
All right, let's stop there. Let's go, if you please, to Daniel chapter 10 and 12. The book of Daniel chapter 10 and 12.
The book of Daniel, chapter 10 and verse 12. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days.
Now remember, what that's letting us know is that there are angels over different areas of the atmosphere. There are different angels, all right? So with those different angels taking occupants over airspace, they control it. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
That's why you'll notice that even Esau tries to take control over airspace, over countries, even over buildings. You know that certain planes can't fly over certain buildings?
That's right.
Because that building has the right to the airspace above it. And countries also have an airspace. So here, what this is saying to us, if you read it again, from verse 13.
Daniel chapter 10, verse 13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia.
Read.
Now I am come to take thee, Salaki. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. For yet the vision is for many days.
So the latter days is speaking about the time that we're in now.
Okay.
We are in the latter days. This is the time that is speaking of now.
That's right.
That's what the book of Daniel is expressing to us. All right, from here back to John 1, and then we're going to finish up with just 2 more verses. I'm being a little bit spent today. All right, so
John 1.
yeah, John 1:5, where we left off.
The book of St. John, chapter 1 and verse 5. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
So the powers of this world could not understand the light. The light of this world that we're now expressing, they don't understand it. That's why they're still seeing Adam and Eve as being naked. They're still seeing the fruit as being an apple.
That's right.
They're still seeing giants on the earth. That's all they're seeing. They're not seeing it, as it says, and the light shineth in darkness.
That's right.
And the darkness comprehended it not. They're not understanding. You get that?
Yes, sir.
Right.
All right. And let's go on to verse 6.
Verse 6. There was a man sent from the Most High, whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe.
Might believe. Read on.
He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light.
Hold that and go to Luke for a minute. Luke 4 and 28 is a precept.
The book of Luke, chapter 4, verse 28. And all they in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath, and rose up, and thrust him out of the city, and led him into the brow of the hill, whereon their city was built, that they might cast him down headlong.
So they were going to take him and throw him down to break up on the rocks. Go on.
But he, passing through the midst of them, went his way.
So, but spiritually what happened was he changed. Because it uses the word, and he passing through them. Now, again, we can only surmise from this that he changed his bodily position, that he could walk through them and they couldn't hold him. He changed everything about himself, because obviously they were going to kill him. And why did he have the power to do that then? Because they were trying to kill him before his designated time.
That's right.
And so the Most High would give him power to pass through rather than them take him. You got that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go back, if you please. Let's go back to Mark chapter. Let's go to Mark 8 and 31 real quick.
So in that moment of time, like his body was kind of a little bit glorified right there.
Yeah. the power of the Most High moved on him so that he became like almost like a vapor. They could see him, but they couldn't touch him.
Right.
But he could just pass right through them. Go ahead.
The book of Mark, chapter 8, verse 31. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders, and of the chief priests, and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again.
All right. So we get so that makes it very clear that they wanted to kill him. What we just read, they wanted to throw him over and kill him. But since they knew they couldn't kill him naturally with their own means, they devised another plan. And that's why I said, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes. And he be killed, and after 3 days be risen. All right, I'm just going to do 2 more, and then I don't want to read a little bit more. Yeah, let's just do that, because yeah. Let's go to John chapter 1 and 12. John 1 and 12, and then we'll go from there.
The book of St. John, chapter 1, verse 12.
But begin at 11.
Verse 11. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him.
Many as what?
But as many as received him.
Many as received him.
To them gave he power to become the sons of the Most High, even to them that believe on his name.
On his name. Romans 8 and 14. Romans 8 and 14, let's go.
Romans chapter 8, verse 14. For as many as are led by the Spirit of the Most High, they are the sons of Yahweh.
They are what?
They are the sons of Yahweh.
They are the sons of Yahweh. Last scripture, Galatians 4 and 5.
Galatians chapter 4, verse 5. To redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons.
That's the precept. All right, we'll stop there. All right, any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Do we have any questions from anyone online? Okay.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Back in Ezekiel 28. And
Back in what?
Ezekiel 28 and 13,
Mhm.
and it was talking about the stones. I remember you had said one time you were going to give us the meaning of those stones.
Mhm.
Another time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we would definitely do that.
And in 1 John 3 and 8, where it used the devil in that instance, 1 John 3 and 8.
Yeah, 1 John 3 and 8, yes.
It used the devil, but that is it for the devil sinning from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That confused me just a little bit because you said they couldn't sin because they were, they weren't given a law.
No, then what I went on to say was that the devil here, in fact, let's read it again so that makes in 1 John 3 and 8 it says, he that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. Meaning he makes people to sin from the beginning. That's what he does.
He uses others to sin.
Yes. And his job also is to make us sin. You know, so not only does he make Esau sin, and he makes all of the other nations sin, he makes us also to sin. Our people. That's why 2/3 of our people are going to be destroyed, because they're locked into sin. But all that's mounting up to a worldwide mass destruction, because the Most High is going to kill 1/3 of all of mankind, male and female. He's going to wipe them off the face of the earth. So if there happens to be, let's say there happens to be, let's say it happens to be, for arithmetic's sake, there's 3 billion people. When he gets done, there's only going to be 2 billion people left. That's a lot of people that's going to die.
That's right.
And when that happens, that's a lot of diseases that's going to take place. That's going to put a lot of people under duress. And, you know, can you imagine that happening? Bodies everywhere. The smell alone is going to be atrocious, and the disease that it's going to bring is going to put people into all sorts of turmoil. So the world thinks it's in a good place, but the world doesn't realize there's a day coming, there's a day of recompense coming, and it's going to truly put you under. Yes.
And in the creation in Genesis, if the angels passed over the waters, given life, fast forward to the creation of man, when he formed Adam, how does the soil of the earth and breath of life come
Yeah, I
into
know
it?
exactly where they're coming from. Let's go back there then. Let's go back to Genesis. It's a good question. Good question. Because if they, I know exactly where that person's asking. Because if back in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, angels passing over, yes, and so on, then the question that they're asking is what happens in chapter 2 and verse 7.
Right.
So if we go to chapter 2 and verse 7 and read, let's see if we can break that down real quick so that they can get an understanding.
Genesis chapter 2 and verse 7. And the Lord, the Most High, formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life.
All right, let's stop there so that we can deal with the dust. And it's capital G. So Yahweh, our power, formed man from the dust. Let's break that down. Isaiah 47:1, please, real quick. 47:1.
Isaiah chapter 47 verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust.
And do what?
Come down and sit in the dust.
Read.
O virgin, daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate.
All right, with that, 1 Samuel chapter 2 and 8. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 8.
1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 8. He riseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifted up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Most High, and he hath set the world upon them.
So the word dust here has been used figuratively. You see, so we have read this to mean that he made man from the dust of the earth. Now, yes, he did make us from the dust. Yes, he did make us from dirt. Dirt that comes from the ocean. Because we came up from the sea, according to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 20. We came up from there. So the dust that was down there, when the angel passed over, our spirit was buried in that dust and came up from the sea and moved onto land. All the creatures, they came up from the dust also, because all the birds. And when the birds in fact flew from the waters into the sky. Because you'll notice that fish, when they swim, they fly. They fly. But they fly through the oceans. The waters become like the air to them. That's why they have fins, which are like wings that operate in the sea. And you'll notice when a bird flies from the air and goes into the water to get fish, they move like it's not strange to them. Get the fish and then fly out of the waters back into the air that they've been given dominance over.
God.
You see? So the Most High knew what he was doing when he orchestrated this. But when he uses the word dust here, dust is being used figuratively. Now we went to those scriptures just to show you that the dust has a symbolic meaning to it. But then when we use the word, in fact, go to 2nd Ezra for me, please, real quick, 3 and 4. Second Ezra 3 and 4. Go
In
ahead.
the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra, chapter 3 and verse 4. O Lord, who bearest rule, thou spakest at the beginning, when thou didst plant the earth, and that thyself alone, and commandest the people.
See? So he has made all things by his word. You see? The ground that we know, which is, they said dust of the ground carries both red and black dirt. And remember, the deeper you go, the blacker the dirt. Okay? But then it uses the word, and breath, and breathe into his nostril the breath of life. Now let's put that together. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7 and 22.
Wisdom of Solomon in the Apocrypha, chapter 7, verse 22. For wisdom, which is the worker of all things.
Hold it, read it again.
For wisdom, which is the worker of all things, taught me, for in her...
Hold it, what did it do?
For in her, Salaki, taught me, for in her is an understanding spirit, holy, one only, manifold, subtle, lively, clear, undefiled, plain, not subject to hurt, loving the things that is good, quick, which cannot be let, ready to do good.
Jump to 25.
Verse 25. For she is the breath of the power of the Most High.
What did it just say?
For she is the breath and, Salaki, of the power of the Most High.
And breathed into his nostril the breath of life. Read it again.
For she is the breath of the power of the Most High, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her.
See that? Go to Brook Form 1 real quick.
In the Apocrypha, Baruch chapter 4, verse 1. This is the book of the commandments of the Most High, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die.
There it is. So you see that this requires precepts to understand that. So I hope that's just a short lesson without going into it too deeply. All right? So I hope our viewer gets that. Because oftentimes what people do when they read that, they see it, in one stead. But, you know, just as how the scriptures have it, and, you know, and forming clay and breathing into it. Remember, the scriptures is there for us. That's why they don't understand it. And then when we break it down, then they go, oh, I never saw it like that before. Well, no, you wouldn't. Because it's been given to us. The mysteries of scripture says is for us. All right. Any other questions? All right. Let's, to all of our viewers, I would like to challenge you. Could you give a shout out to all your friends, families, and relatives, and ask them to sit and maybe listen to some of the teaching? So it will allow them to get understanding of who they are in as far as the kingdom is concerned. Many people don't realize that they are, I'm speaking about those who are of so-called African American descent and so-called Native American and so on, that they are the 12 tribes of Israel who they have said are lost. We weren't lost, we were just displaced. And so I'm asking you to invite your friends to listen to some of the teachings, get an understanding, and if you have any questions, be bold enough, put it together in an email, send it to us, and we will answer those questions for you. In the meantime, we continue to solicit your prayers and the financial support that you give to this ministry. You can go online and give through our website. You'll find that on NMCC Hebrew Academy. Again, it is NMCC Hebrew Academy. You'll see a number of information there about us and the days when we have studies and teaching. And for those of you that you're in the area of Houston, we look forward to you coming by and paying us a visit and be our guests. In the meantime, we bid you all shalom.